fails, they are going to be looked at as being treasonous, and they'll hang. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about the history of civil unrest in the Americas. After kind of looking at what this entailed, I'm breaking this up into multiple segments because there's a lot of civil unrest in the United States. And in order to fully understand where we're at today in 2020, I wanted to bring us all the way back to the colonies in the 1600s. So I'm going to sort of brush over on that, kind of go through very quickly some of the lesser known riots and uprisings, but kind of dig just a little bit deeper on the ones that I feel are a little bit more well known. Maybe that may spark a memory. For my history people, no, I am not deep diving into any of these. This is a short YouTube video. I mean, I've learned if a video is more than 10 minutes, people quit listening. Some people quit listening after 2 minutes. Hey, what do I know? But I am not deep diving into any of this. So if I'm missing, big chunks of it, yeah, I get it. But hey, we're sort of trying to give an overview, like a little brief summary. So without further ado, let's go. All right, we're going to way back machine this to 1622, back in Jamestown, where John Smith, yes, the John Smith that you're thinking of from the movie Pocahontas, John Smith was the guy in charge of Jamestown, and he wasn't that great. He was not that nice of a guy. Instead of working with the Powhatan tribe that was like, hey, we'll help you, he just kind of got really greedy, and in turn, the colonists there got really greedy because you sort of emulate your leader. And if you have a leader that has a particular method, chances are, and it's working at that time, you're kind of going to follow them. So the colonists would just take what they wanted. They often burned and looted the indigenous people, the Powhatan tribe. And so it just got to be too much. And the chief Wahanso Nakak, that was his name. Often people call him Chief Powhatan. He basically was like, and again, super paraphrasing here, I don't really understand why you guys didn't just come in peace and we would have worked together. Instead, you come, you take from us. I'm watching my people die. This is not okay. And after his death, the Powhatan tribe just sort of moves. They go to a different place. This is the first time that we sort of see, the first colony, and there is civil unrest between the indigenous people and the colonists. So here we see a list of other armed conflicts with indigenous people. And again, these are all from colonies, and the colonies aren't all British. There's French, there's Spanish, like the Pueblo revolts, that is with Spain, Spaniards. And so we do see that there is a lot of unrest with the indigenous people. Again, they lived here and the colonists just came. And instead of working with them, they tried to just take. And so we see an oppressor and the oppressed. In addition to uprisings with the indigenous population, there are also political conflicts. There are a variety of conflicts that are all about rebels and disagreement, people who are angry at their politicians. And the people want to overthrow the politicians or to make their voices be heard in some way. The slave revolts, there are several slave revolts in the 1700s. There go on to be more later, but in the 1700s, there are 3 that I've highlighted. The issue between the oppressed and the oppressors. So an oppressor has all the power, and the people who are oppressed, after a while, they can't take it anymore. And especially if you're dealing with unfair situations. So the oppressed will rise up against their oppressor, and they may win the battle, but they don't always win the war. And the reason why is because the people who are the oppressors hold most of the power. They hold most of the power in the system. They hold most of the power in politics, in the laws, in the enforcement of those laws. And if the oppressed rise up, they find a way to squash that rebellion in some way. After one of these slave revolts, there was actually a law enacted where more than 3 enslaved people could not be together alone at one time. And the thought was that would quell any sort of uprising. Did it though? There's also instances of civil unrest against the government. In 1713 in Boston, there's a bread riot. If history has taught us anything, it don't get in the way of a mother feeding her kid, because she's not going to stand for that. And the bread and other staples had risen to a price where the people couldn't afford it. Can't afford to feed your kids, something snaps, and you're not going to put up with it anymore. And so there was a revolt, there was a riot about the price of staples, primarily bread. In 1742, we have an election riot. In 1747, the Knowles riot's really interesting because it's the first time that we sort of see the evocation of the concept of natural rights, John Locke kind of stuff. And it centers around impressment, which is just taking people to serve in the military and Navy, sort of without their consent. Like, oh, you're just coming with me today. And people didn't take too kindly to having joined the armed forces by force. Go figure. There are vigilante groups that arise, such as the Paxton Boys. There's more civil unrest against the government. We have colonial officials. Citizens take up arms against them if they feel they're corrupt in the War of Regulation. We have in 1765 the Black Boys, also known as Brave Fellows or Loyal Volunteers. They are very upset. They don't feel that the government effectively handles what's going on amongst the people after Pontiac's War, so they take matters into their own hands. And then we kind of roll into the Stamp Act riot, and we cover this ad nauseum in 8th grade. But the Stamp Act, it's sort of like the start. It's in there with a bunch of different taxation that the British impose on the American colonies, the British colonies. And with the Stamp Act, anything printed on a piece of paper, from a playing card to a label, had to have this special stamp. It's an embossed stamp. And it was expensive, and people felt that it was taxation. It was taxation without representation. That's what we keep hearing for the revolution. And basically, the colonists were like, this is ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous. We can't print anything without this stamp. It's expensive. It's taxation. Where's the king? He's over there. He doesn't even know what happens over here. And so the colonists rise up. That kind of swiftly brings us to the Boston Massacre. So the Boston Massacre, it's often like even looked at as one of the first sort of battles in the American Civil War. So get this. There's a wig maker's apprentice. Talk about a job that doesn't exist anymore. So there's a wig maker's apprentice, and he looks over and he sees this soldier, and he thinks that the soldier hasn't paid his wig bill. And so he starts throwing insults at the soldier. The soldier insults him back, goes back and forth. It escalates. The wig maker's apprentice starts poking him in the chest like, listen, dude. And the soldier just hits the wig maker's apprentice with his musket. Before you know it, 300 to 400 Bostonians are there. They're throwing stuff at the soldiers. The soldier called for backup. There's soldiers. There's Bostonians. The soldiers are trying to stand there. The Bostonians are throwing stuff. And then Henry Knox says, if he fires, he must die. Listen, soldiers, if you fire on us, you're going to die. That's just the way it's going to be. Soldiers yeah, we got you. Long story short, a soldier gets an itchy trigger finger, shoots. Other guys shoot, because when one shot, they all shot. 11 Bostonians are hit. 3 die instantly, including Crispus Attucks, who is an ex-slave, former slave. And he's often looked at as one of the first casualty of the American Revolution. So there's an investigation, there are arrests, there's a media battle. Sound familiar? There are trials. Outcome, it sets the stage for the American Revolution. So the stage is set. We are ready. Kind of swooshes us into the Boston Tea Party. Heard a lot about the Boston Tea Party recently on the news. So the Boston Tea Party, again, about taxes. There are a group of individuals who decide that they're going to take a bunch of tea and throw it into the harbor. But there's more to it. It was taxes that sort of set up the East India Company to be a monopoly, and a lot of people did not feel that was a good thing. And so these rebels, these uprisers, these rioters, they dress as Mohawk Indians, and they do that not just to like, oh, hey, you don't notice who we are, or we're trying to frame the Mohawks, but they actually sort of do that as like a, hey, we're more American than we are British, so we're claiming this American side to us. This inspires other people to act out. John Adams, who later becomes a president, he sort of shifts, and a lot of other people shift, and they look at drinking tea as being unpatriotic. And so they kind of shift the national drink to coffee, because we have this, budding patriotism. And what does that look like? Sort of still have that. So all of that sets us up. By July 4th, 1776, we have a group of men who come together to have the Declaration of Independence. It is written by Thomas Jefferson, but heavily influenced by a variety of other people, including Ben Franklin. And all the people who sign the Declaration of Independence know that if this fails, they are going to be looked at as being treasonous, and they'll hang. And it was a choice, it was a decision, and it was a belief that they were so ingrained in that they felt it was worth death. That's it for this chapter. We'll see you next time. Have a good day. Stay safe, stay sane, stay informed, do good things, and be good people. Bye.